This is Algebra, Topic 5, Section 5-1. For today's notes, you want to have some graph paper. Remember, there is a link that you can use to print some on our Google Classroom page. All right, so we've talked about absolute value before. Topic 5-1 is learning all about the equation that goes with absolute value. We're going to title it the absolute value function. You're doing a good job keeping your notes and your assignments together, I hope. All right, so we're just going to do 3 or 4 examples today to get through this. The first one, in function notation, I'm going to give you f of x equals the absolute value of x. Now, let's just talk about that by using a table. So if we make just a simple xy table, and we go down and pick some values for x, remember y is just what the f of x is. So if we pick the points -2, -1, 0, +1, and +2, and just pluck them into the equation, we would have y equals the absolute value of -2, the absolute value of -1, 0, +1, and +2. Now recall that absolute value is just simply distance. So in each of these, distance is positive. So you're going to end up with values of 2, 1, 0, 1, and 2 again. So let's enter those into the table. Okay, now if you will, let us go ahead and graph those. Notice that you're going to be just in these 2 quadrants. Okay, the first point, -2, +2, -1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, and 2, 2. They're going to connect to give you a V shape. Remember, if you just had y equals x, it would be right here. But because it's absolute value, it's going to take whatever was over here in the negative and flip it up. This is what we call the parent function for absolute value. Now, let's talk about the domain and the range. Remember, domain is the x values. Notice that the x's, there's no limitation. They can be anything to the left or to the right. So the domain is all real numbers. Again, that's your x. Range is your y. Now do notice there is a limitation to what the y's can be. They're always from here up, which is from the 0 bigger. So the y's are always greater than or equal to 0. Now, let's look at a few other things with this graph. Let me give you 3 points, and I want you to tell me, are these on the graph? In other words, if I were to continue this, would these points be there? These are just simple yes or no answers. Okay. If you need a minute to think about it, go ahead and pause the video. So remember, this is x and this is y. So the function, remember, was y equals the absolute value of x. So this is saying that -5 is the absolute value of 5, and no way, that's not true. This one, the y is 7, it's saying that's the absolute value of -7, and yes, that's true. This one is saying that 12 is the absolute value of 12, and yes, that is true. This one, notice, was out of the range. The range says it has to be bigger than 0. So I could actually tell these answers just by simply looking at the domain and the range, because there's no limitation on the domain, but the ranges had to be bigger than 0. All right, so on the next example, we're going to take this parent function and manipulate it slightly. For example 2, let's graph g of x equals 5 times the absolute value of x. I think we'll make a table and use the same points. barking dog. I think FedEx is out there. So these are going to be slightly different. In this case, my y is going to be 5 times the absolute value of -2. 5 times 2 is 10. Okay, see if you can finish those 5. Pause the video while you do that. Okay, this one would have been 5 times the absolute value of -1. 5 times 1 is 5. This would have been 5 times 0. Much like the parabola, it is going to kind of just duplicate once you get to this bottom part, which is also called the vertex. All right, so now to graph these, again, I just have these 2 quadrants. I need to go up to 10. I think maybe I will count by 2's on the y-axis. All right, but I'm going to stick to the 1's on the x-axis. So -2, +10, -1, +5. Once again, I have the v. Notice I do put arrows to indicate that it does continue on. Domain and range, notice, are going to be the same. No limitations on the x. The y is from 0 up. All right, this next one's going to be a little bit on the strange side. We're going to have h of x equal to a -1/2 absolute value of x. Now, do you remember when we did parabolas, how that negative value affected the parabola? You're going to see it's going to be very similar, actually exactly the same, with the absolute value function. Okay, so when you pick your values for the x and the y, there's no reason you couldn't do the same ones. However, you are going to be taking half. So to me, rather than picking the odd numbers, I'm going to pick some all evens, which are very easy to take half of. So for the chart, I'm going to use -4, -2, 0, 2, and 4. All right, so to find your y values, notice it's a -1/2 times the absolute value of -4. So this is a 4. -1/2 times 4. Negative times positive is negative. Half of 4, or 4/2, is going to be 2. Go ahead and do the same thing for the rest of the points and restart the video when you're ready. All right, you have a -2. You should have had a -1, 0, -1, and -2. Let's tackle the -2 just so you can see how that was done. It's -1/2 times the absolute value of -2. So it's a -1/2 times a +2. Negative times positive is negative. 2/2, or half of 2, is 1. Now we're ready to graph those. Now remember, we're making the guess that's going to flip upside down. So let's see how that looks. So -4, -2, -2, -1, 0, 0, 2, -1, and 4, -2. So it did flip. Now what's super cool is it uses the same rules as the parabola. When you had a number in front that was a fraction, it got wider. When your number in front was a large number, bigger than, say, 1, it got narrower. If you were to have counted by ones, you would absolutely see how different that looks. All right, that's pretty much it for this chapter, this section. Your homework is going to be on page 188. You're going to be doing this section right in here. Okay, for these, you're going to give me a yes or no answers. If you have a yes, I want you to pick another point that's going to give the same answer. So if we go back to the notes, remember up at the top on example 1, we did the yes, no here. Another point that's going to give the same answer of 7 would be a +7. Another answer that would give you the same answer of 12 would be a negative 12. That's all it's asking. And then you've got 4 graphs, and also state their domains and their range. All right, remember, if you need any help, you can always reach out to me by a phone call or a text.